This past weekend was a very important week of motorsports, I guess you can say, because you had the NASCAR Cup Series heading out to Midwest to race at the Kansas Motor Speedway, and then you had the Formula One World Championship Series heading out to Miami to race in the Miami Grand Prix. But what's so big about this all is that usually when Formula One races, it's usually in Europe, 9 times out of 10, that or Asia or Australia, and it's hard to come over to the United States besides a handful of races. But the point is, though, they usually race early in the morning, not really going toe-to-toe with NASCAR. But today was a rarity because they did. They started at 3:30. NASCAR started at 3. I'm filming this on a Sunday, it'll go out on a Monday. But NASCAR, I believe, held their own, and I will talk about that later on in the video. But it was a big weekend. Moving on, we got another big weekend, but for NASCAR only. It is Throwback Weekend. You're going to see a lot of cool paint schemes out in Darlington. And today, I am here to give you a preview and my predictions on how things will possibly play out. And also, you want to stay tuned for the channel for the coming days because there will be a throwback video for all the throwback paint schemes. So stay tuned for that. But on to the intro we go.
Hey, I'm Lady here, and you're watching William Blackwell on YouTube.
Let's talk about the big elephant in the room, shall we? This past weekend, Denny Hamlin won. Good for him. But no one's going to really talk about that. But what they're going to talk about is what happened between Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson. And before I give you my personal opinion on the matter, I must say that I'm a Chase Briscoe fan. I can care less about any of these two drivers. I'm going to tell you how it is. But then during the race, we saw Gragson and Chastain come together on a restart. It was about 60 laps ago in that range, and it sent the 42 into the outside retaining wall. It was on the front stretch, and you know, on the front stretch, the drivers like to go into that, cut that dog leg, and that's what Chastain was doing. He was on the apron, and once Gragson hit that wall, he came straight down to the apron and doored the one car. And what was very interesting about that is the way he doored that one car. If he was just a tad bit further behind, it would have turned him on the straightaway. And Noah Gragson is a big critic about drivers turning drivers on straightaway. So, hypocrite. So, after the race, he carried on that beef for 60 laps, and that's interesting to me. But after the race, though, Noah Gragson decided he was going to man up and go confront Ross Chastain. He goes down to Ross Chastain. He says maybe 2 words. That's about it before he decides to start shoving. 1 shove, 2 shove. Ross Chastain told him to stop and then proceeded to punch Mr. Noah Gragson, and the fight was broken up. Chastain landed 1 blow, and while Noah Gragson was getting pulled back from security, it looked like Ross Chastain was just laughing. It did not bother him at all. So, looking at it all, Noah Gragson, what are you doing, man? This is not a good look. I understand you're trying to stick up for yourself, but you just don't go do that. People say NASCAR should stay away from being like a spectrum thing, and like it's a business. Like, you don't go down there and fight a driver. You don't do that in this day and age. Like, your sponsors are not going to like that, and your team is definitely not going to like that because of all the backlash that's going to go on. But I believe, though, the big winner out of this deal was Ross Chastain because he simply doesn't give a crap what other people think, and if they come after him, he'll get them right. But enough said on this matter. I think Ross Chastain was the clear winner in this little argument or settlement deal between him and Noah Gragson. But now on to the picks for Darlington. Throwback Weekend out in South Carolina. It's going to be a fun weekend in Darlington, but I believe you're going to see a repeat. And I believe Denny Hamlin is going to win back-to-back races in the NASCAR Cup Series, and he will win the Southern 400, I guess you can say, this year, because it's usually 500, but this time around, the throwback race is the 400-mile race. So Denny Hamlin going back-to-back. Second place, though, will be Kyle Larson. And I believe it's going to be the same running order as Kansas. But, though, the big thing to keep an eye on, if this is were to be the case, how would the 5 car of Kyle Larson race the 11 car. It's going to be something to keep an eye on throughout the whole weekend because we saw the 11 car take air away from the 5 car, which ultimately caused the 5 car to lose the lead and the race. And I just got a feeling, even though they're buddies, I believe they're going to race each other differently, especially Kyle Larson. So keep an eye on that. Third place, though, is going to be Mr. Ross Chastain after a big weekend out in Kansas where he made a point, I guess you can say. For all the drivers that are criticizing him, he showed that he doesn't care, and if they come after him, he'll fight back. And I just believe it was a big deal for him. And I think he's going to go out to Darlington, a track he's been decent at in the past. And I think he's going to score a top 3 finish, and that's going to build up a big lead in the Cup Series points over Denny Hamlin, because I believe Ross Chastain will at least win one stage. And I believe the 11 car is going to be that type of car that's going to struggle early on and get better at the end. So that's why I think Chastain builds up his lead over Hamlin, even though Hamlin can still win. All right, Joey Logano is going to finish 4th, and it's kind of been mid for him ever since Martinsville, because there's not a lot of things going for Joey Logano lately, and he needs to turn around his season. He won at Atlanta, went downhill after that, did good in Martinsville because of a strategy call late in the race because of a caution. A lot of things are going against him right now, and also Team Penske in general. So they need to turn things around by the summer, because the summer is a make or break point for teams. If you're not good throughout the summer, you're going to suck throughout the fall. So let's see here. Phone going on 10%, so we got to get this quick here. But Logano, though, has been struggling, and so is Team Penske, and a top 5 out in Darlington will be big for him and that whole organization. Finishing 5th place, though, is going to be the 19 car of Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. entered the season winningless and now a playoff driver back in 2022. He had that chip on his shoulder. He went out to the LA Clash and won that race. And it set a big note throughout the whole NASCAR garage that he is going to be a contender this year, whether you like it or not. Fast forward to Daytona, things don't really go his way. It's a plate track. He struggles at them. But throughout the year, he's getting consistent. And eventually, he got that win out in Dover. A big deal for him because he won the Dover race. His brother won the Xfinity race. A big weekend for the Truex family. And darn Truex goes out to Kansas, has a good run. I'm telling you, folks, he's going to go on a tear. Darlington, a good track for him. He's won this race in the past. He can easily win it this weekend. And then after that, you got the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. No one knows how drivers are going to race there, who's going to be good and who's going to be bad. But after that, folks, they go to Charlotte. And who put on the most dominating performance in the Coca-Cola 600 history? Did I hear you right? Martin Truex Jr. He led 392 laps out of 400 back in the year 2016 for Furniture Road Racing. Could he do it this time around? I don't know. It's a different kind of style of racing than it was many years ago, but I believe he's going to be a factor in that race. But it's Darlington now. We cannot keep looking longer and longer down the road. So we're just going to stay at Darlington. For the time being, I think he finishes 5th. So there you go. Denny Hamlin wins. Kyle Larson 2nd. But keep an eye on that. They may race each other differently. Chastain 3rd, Logano 4th, and Martin Truex Jr. 5th. All right. Dark horse. Well, who are we going to look at here, folks? I like Cindric. I like Blaney. I'm putting them as dark horses because Ford, as in general, just sucked this year. And you got Briscoe, you got Priest, Almirola. I think Almirola's going to have a good weekend, but the one driver I like the most is Bad Brad Keselowski. Bad Brad Keselowski is having a tremendous season. And no one really saw it coming because RFK has been down ever since we saw the star drivers like Matt Kenseth, Carl Edwards, and Greg Biffle leave. And they were kind of revived when Brad Keselowski came over back in the year of 2022. They got a win out in Bristol with Chris Buescher, but he wasn't in the playoffs, so it really didn't mean much, but it did mean much for the team because it was the first win since Stenhouse back in the year of 2017 at Daytona. So a big deal for them, but this year they kind of got it going in the right direction. More so Brad Keselowski than Chris Buescher, but Buescher is still up there. I think if there is a Ford driver that's going to steal the show this weekend, it's going to be bad Brad Keselowski alongside Logano. So keep an eye on him. And this past weekend, they all talked about nutrition. The weather, how hot it was. This weekend is going to be a doozy, folks. It's going to be 90 plus degrees out in Darlington. No telling what the humidity is going to be like. It's going to be really hot. Them drivers are going to be exhausted. And I promise you, after 400 miles of racing, some tempers will be flaring. But enough said here, folks. Everybody, I hope you have a great and phenomenal week. Please like and subscribe and get your picks down below to be entered in this Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series Pick 5 contest. Everybody have a good one. Peace.